Hello, YTPC. And happy 4th of July. Happy Independence Day. Enjoying some delicious old home place. And that is out of my shakam, my fun one. Love July. Really, it's it's just it's a month of pride, Odd that these days national pride is almost something that is demonized. Nationality. To be proud of one's national heritage. And I think most important, of course, with the 4th of July, and not just patriotism and pride in country, but there's also the component of the freedom celebration, right? The fact that we were able to overcome oppression and create our freedoms and solidify exactly what those were and what those rights were, that were not to be oppressed, and what we deemed incontrovertible. You couldn't change these rights. And it's a sad time in our nation to watch so much of that erode so fast. Especially these days. I mean, never would I ever think, I'm only 45, but never would I think that there'd be a time where I would literally hear a president of my country, acting, sitting president, demonize the other political party, to literally consider them nothing lesser than a terrorist. I mean, it's why we have two parties, is to keep the balance, right? The fact that any president would consider anybody who votes for their opponent to be a radicalized person of threat is a threat in itself. It's just disgusting, to be honest. But, well, I don't need to rant. Anybody who's truly woke, and I don't use that as a political term, but I mean anybody who has neurological activity happening in the frontal and prefrontal cortexes of their brain are able to see everything for what it is. So there's no sense in me firing off and heating up YouTube. But I will say that history has shown how easy it is for individuals of many different nations, Europe, all over, Asia, Eastern Europe, to get to a point where you are rounding up your children and getting onto those trains, even though you know darn well where you're headed, and doing so passively. There's a lot of good literature out there, a lot of good books. The Gulag Archipelago, that's a great book. Anybody who has read it, feel free to comment. Those of the who have not, great book, just showing how slippery that slope is. That was the political prisoners, people who were sent to the Gulag just because of their political views not aligning in Russia. Great book written by someone who was imprisoned because they were teaching the unpopular political view. And passive. The first chapter is the arrests. I think second or third chapter is first cell, first love. Just talking about how quickly you acclimate to being imprisoned. But oppression is a weird thing. It's something that it's like slipping into a hot bath. It's all of a sudden you just get acclimated to the temperature, and it's like it's not even happening anymore, and that's where it falls. So, while we're enjoying our hamburgers and hot dogs, enjoying our time with family, friends, I think it's important to remember those things, because each member of society, for all these different examples, and there are plenty, never see it coming. We don't like to. We're weird like that. It's a defense mechanism, and it goes hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of years of evolution, where it once was a good thing. People die of shock when they're in bad car accidents, when really they could have survived. Just because the body says you're injured badly enough that I'm just going to do you a favor, right? And just put you out of your misery, and your body will literally just shut down and you die. We have modern medicine that can save your life, but evolution hasn't caught up. So whenever you hear people trying to say, oh, they're in shock, and they say it with exclamation, and they try hard to keep them out of shock, that's why. And just as primitive as that is, our ability to be oppressed and go with the crowd and go and do whatever we're told to do, in the majority, it still exists strongly, unfortunately. Be the better man and woman. Think for yourself. Exercise that. Go out today and wear something patriotic like this. You're gonna get some weird views. It's a weird feeling. It's okay. Who cares? Exercise it once in a while, oddly like that. It's okay to do so. I think it's great because it helps to train your brain. Be unapologetically you, to a point where, not that you're being a narcissistic prick. I just mean, do things that you truly enjoy, and maybe even things that you might be timid or embarrassed about. It's okay to buck the system. It's okay to speak your mind. It's those things that are literally what made this nation be born. And it was a great speech actually given by General Lafayette. It was actually one of the few, one of the last times he was here in the States. It was out in New England. And he was just talking about having watched the revolution here, knowing that it had gone a different way than France's revolution had gone, and speaking of the liberties that we had, and speaking of what kind of a country and democracy we had just created. But his foresight was pretty impeccable as he discusses, you lose your sense of nationality, you lose your the vicissitude to be able to withstand oppression. You give in just a little bit, and it will be as though a great light had been extinguished from the world, and the world would suffer for it. Paraphrasing that last piece, but very close. Only because I've read the speech several times, because it's only about maybe, I don't know, so several pages long, but it's spooky. It's a spooky speech. He literally describes today. And how fast this nation will deteriorate once that occurs. And it's occurred, so now we just get to sit back and enjoy the deterioration. But anyway, now I feel as though I've taken a giant dump on the 4th of July. Have some barbecue, listen to some patriotic music, watch a great, there's some great high-def colorized war documentaries. Watch one, remember what it has taken for this country to be what it is. Thank vets, look back at our history. There's some really great stuff from the Founding Fathers, some really great quotes, to see like the people who put this all together, what they envisioned it would be. and then of course what it has actually become. And so when we get to a point where we act like a democracy, but we're pretty much really functioning like a communism, we've got a problem. I mean, to a degree where you almost kind of feel as though at least an honest communistic country is honest about it. I mean, at least you know that you're working for the greater good of the country and that your money is not just your money and so forth. Opposed to it being somewhere where it's just a facade and you feel as though you're represented. And you know, it's interesting how we allow ourselves to evolve in certain ways in life, medicine, and so forth, and technology. But then in other ways, we act as though, oh, there's no other way to live. I mean, even the fact that we have state representatives is kind of interesting. Not that we should have the rule of the mob, but if it is generally we the people, I mean, if you can trust me to do my taxes online, which is kind of what keeps this country going, is the cash flow from its citizens, then there's no way that can be secured, but you can't secure some way for me to vote on something that's passing in my state, right? I mean, if there's a law passing, everybody who's proven to be a citizen should have access to that app, just like I have access to TurboTax, right? And be able to just vote, right? I mean, if it's really we the people, why can't we just do that? I mean, it's extreme, but the point is there's the fact that we're still doing it the way that we did when we first started several hundred years ago kind of tells you something. Anyway, with that all said, Old Home Place, awesome blend, great freedom sipping blend. Really. With each puff, just the flavor of freedom of speech is on my tongue. Anyways, enjoy your 4th, be well, and happy sipping.